it's one of these situations where there's the Wall Street view on this deal, the structure of the deal, and then there's the, what does this mean for Hollywood? And the reason I'm so excited to have you on the program is I think we could probably talk about both. But this is the first opportunity I've had to talk to you about two competing bids. I set the stage for it on Netflix's offer, cash and stock, and Paramount's offer. What is your position at this time, and what is your research into the competing bids?
So, I mean, I think the kudos have to go to Zaslav for creating this auction for an asset that's worth $12. We're now at $30 a share. And now we've heard over the tape this morning that both Paramount and Netflix have said they could go higher. So far we have a 300% premium over what the assets were trading at before the auction rumors. So first of all, kudos to David Zaslav and the Warner Brothers team for selling an asset dear. In terms of who wins, we are much more sanguine about Paramount's, or P-Sky is its ticker, regulatory ability to get it through the Trump administration.
Right.
We think that there are real issues with Netflix being successful, not only with Hollywood talent who see this as anti-competitive. I sit in Hollywood as anti-competitive, especially because Netflix has said repeatedly it does not believe in the theatrical box office release window. And so all of Hollywood is scared to death that if suddenly Netflix owned Warner Brothers, that within 5 years they would stop releasing films in the theatrical box office, which is why we've seen pressure on the exhibitors also. So I think Hollywood is really negative, or let me say it this way, much more negative about Netflix taking over Warner Brothers than P-Sky. I would say that. And on the money side...
Let me jump in real quick on the money side. We will get to Hollywood, particularly technology, because Netflix's competency is the algorithm to an extent, and the library and the content. But I just want to go back and back to basics and what you said. $12 with Warner Brothers Discovery. You're not the first person to make this point, Laura, but just explain the basics to our audience, please. People do feel that the value of what either entity ends up getting may not be at $27.75 for the studio streaming, or $30 for the whole enchilada, as I keep saying.
Right. So, I mean, I'm comparing the trading price for WBD, Warner Brothers, for like a year. Essentially, it was falling, and it hit about a $12 price before the first rumor of a P-Sky bid started the stock moving up. And then I can't remember the Larry Ellison first bid or the David Ellison first bid, but now we're up at $30 a share for the whole thing, and that includes $27 from Netflix for studios, plus the idea is there'd be a $2, $3 stub left trading for the networks division, which would add up to $30 also. But in theory, so anyway, I'm saying we're like at $30 for the comparable asset that was trading at $12 before the auction began for this asset.
I think there's a lot of value in that answer, because the next question is, of course, about antitrust and what the combined entities would look like in either case. You said you believe, or you're more sanguine about Paramount Skydance combined with Warner Brothers Discovery. Why?
Okay, so in streaming, in the streaming industry, Netflix has over 300 million global subscribers, and HBO Max has 150. So together, there's some duplication there, but let's just call it 450 subscribers, which is like 40% of the streaming market. Whereas Paramount, or P-Sky it's now called, has 75 million subscribers that you would add to the HBO, which is 150. So now you're at 225 million subscribers, much smaller market share of streaming than if you combine Netflix, which is the industry leader, with Warner Brothers HBO Max asset, streaming asset. So I would say that's one reason. And then the Hollywood studios, as you know, Netflix is one of the largest global creators of content, and you would combine it with Warner Brothers, which is one of the largest global creators of content. They have different windows, meaning distribution windows, meaning Netflix primarily creates for television, direct to streaming, the television screen, and Warner Brothers primarily creates content for both TV, but also the film business. It's a big film a distributor. So I think the idea is putting these two huge content creators together would dampen competition for talent and lower prices for talent, and also raise prices for consumer. That is not a concern with P-Sky buying Warner Brothers.
Laura, we have less than a minute. Netflix would argue, and I am simplifying, that it would simplify it for the consumer. Having HBO Max, Netflix, people have multiple subscriptions. But it sounds like you don't think that argument will make traction.
Oh, no, it would simplify it for the consumer. But if they collapse, the thinking is they would collapse Netflix and HBO Max. Great. But what happens to the price? The consumer is going to get a much higher price if you add those two things together. So it's simpler. But really, monopoly policy isn't based on simplicity versus complexity. It's based on the price to the consumer and consumer welfare. And price is part of consumer welfare. Actually, simplicity is not in the laws as a driving factor, but price is. And price would go up for consumers if they combine those two assets, I think.